Hi everyone, I'm Kendra from kendraperry.net. I'm a certified functional nutrition practitioner and I help women balance their hormones and heal their guts so that they can feel good every single day. And today I want to talk a little bit about adrenal fatigue. And I know this is a pretty hot topic these days, lots of people writing about it, making videos about it, and you may even have an adrenal fatigue diagnosis. But what I want to talk about today is why adrenal fatigue doesn't really exist. And so that might make you a bit upset, that might make you angry, but what I want to say first is that I don't doubt the symptoms that you have. If you have an adrenal fatigue diagnosis and you're feeling really crappy, I get that, and I'm not disputing that. But our understanding of adrenal fatigue is a little bit flawed. So the whole concept of adrenal fatigue came about maybe about 50 years ago, and it kind of considers the adrenal glands like a muscle. So over time, as the brain is constantly telling the adrenals to give up cortisol, they sort of start to fatigue and cortisol levels start to drop, and that's when you get those symptoms of fatigue and exhaustion and all those other things that kind of come with it. But this understanding is flawed, and it's not really showing what the current research is telling us. So the adrenal glands aren't really meant to give out. Certain organs are. The ovaries, for example, are meant to give out at a certain time, but the adrenal glands are not. And that situation where the adrenal glands are actually underfunctioning and shutting down is actually a really rare situation. So what's actually happening when you have adrenal fatigue is you actually have HPA axis dysfunction. And it's not as sexy as adrenal fatigue, but it's basically a communication breakdown between the HPA axis, which stands for hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So the hypothalamus is in the brain, and then the pituitary is at the base of the neck, and then the adrenal glands are just above the kidneys. And this is a feedback loop or communication system. So it's basically how your body responds to stress. When you're stressed, the brain senses it, and then the brain sends hormones down to the adrenal glands to tell it to give off cortisol. But a lot of us end up with this chronically high cortisol, and that's not really a normal situation. So stress is normal, but really it's meant to be short and it's meant to be intermittent. So it should be resolved quite quickly. But unfortunately, we tend to have a lot of challenges. We have a lot of mental and emotional stress, but we also have a lot of internal stress because we live in this very toxic world. So we end up having this chronically high cortisol that can be high for quite some time. And this is not normal. And it really, really messes with this feedback loop, and it starts to make it dysfunctional. So you can kind of think of it like this communication breakdown. So like wires are getting crossed, and the communication just isn't getting through as it should. So you kind of end up in a situation where the brain knows that you have stress and that you need cortisol, but the adrenal glands aren't really getting the message. So it's not really a situation of the adrenal glands fatiguing. It's more of a situation of they're just not getting the right message. So cortisol ends up being low and you end up having all those symptoms. So a lot of the sort of conventional treatments for adrenal fatigue really focus on supplements, things like glandulars or different adaptogens that kind of stimulate the adrenal glands. But this doesn't really fix the problem because it's not an adrenal issue. So maybe in the beginning it helps a little bit and you notice some symptom relief, but it's not going to help you heal. And that's why you probably still have adrenal fatigue despite taking all these really expensive supplements. So the key to fixing adrenal fatigue is really to address the stress. And that's not only the mental and emotional stress, which is generally a little bit more obvious, but it's also the internal stress that is a little less obvious. So you kind of have to become your own personal detective and really start to assess what might not be functioning optimally in the body that can be causing this chronic stress response. And that's really the key to fixing it. So if you want to learn a little bit more about what I'm talking about right now, you can head over to my blog, kendraperry.net, navigate to my blog, and check out the article. I talk a little bit more about this in detail and some things you can do to help resolve it. Thanks so much for listening today. I'm really happy you joined me, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.